Hello, everyone. My name is Lorianne Minoff. I am a local Women's Council president for 2024 down in Broward County, and I am joined by none other than 2009 past national president Becky Hill. Thank you so much for being here today, Becky.
Hey, I'm honored to have been asked. Thank you.
I'm super excited. So, as I've told many people now before, that it started with you this year, President Circle. We had this conversation, and this is where this whole brainchild came from. And now the time has finally arrived, and we're finally connecting, and we're able to have this conversation. And I'm just so excited for it.
Well, me too. And it was such a pleasure to get to visit with you during a Women's Council event there at President's Circle. I know a lot of time has passed since then, and we've we've gone back and forth trying to find a good time, and had to change the date several times with different scheduling. But glad it finally came together this morning.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. So let's kick it off. Let's hear. I would love to know a little bit about you. So if you can give us a little introduction about yourself and members can get to know you a little bit better that don't know you.
Oh, okay. Well, how far back do you want me to go? Well, I was born in Virginia, actually. I'm a coal miner's daughter. If anybody's ever seen the movie, it was pretty typical of the area where I grew up, and went to college in Virginia, and met my future husband there, and then he took a job with Shell Oil Company when we both had graduated from college, and so that brought us to Texas, and I've sort of been in Texas ever since, and um, just started off at getting my license to just do investments really for us, and the business till I was into it for a couple of years, and other people started asking me to help them find investment properties, and so the rest is history. I went on to I was teaching in the public school system, and we were married, and then ended up eventually going into real estate full time, quit teaching and went into real estate full time, and went on to own my own real estate brokerage company, and owned and managed that for several years. We sold it, all the recession coming. Got involved in Women's Council when I decided to be a business owner, because I wanted to surround myself with successful people. And I looked around our industry to see what I thought would be the best choice of organizations to devote some time to. And Women's Council was it. And some of my best friends in real estate today in the Houston area are as a result of Women's Council, also all over the country. I have relationships, friends, people all over the country that were in leadership roles mainly, but also just individuals. Anything else you want to know about
I love it.
history?
Yeah, no, we'll just get started with the question. So, as a past national president of Women's Council of Realtors, what would you say are some of the major contributions you made to the organization during your tenure?
Oh, well, I don't, yeah, I never have been um, sort of try to take credit for anything. I've had other members come up to me and tell me that I was viewed as uh, the people's president, the members' president, um, because I was very approachable. And that's sort of been, my whole philosophy on life and business is that first and foremost, you have to be approachable. But when I served in 2009 is when the country was in a recession. And so one of the things that I wanted to bring to all of our members as I to different locations to speak to local networks and everything, I wanted to bring them hope for the future. And by that point in time, I'd already been through a recessionary period since I had gotten my license, a really bad recession during the between 1983 to 86. And so when we started going through the recession in 2007, 8, and 9, I had already been in ownership of a company, but we had made the decision to sell the company. And that decision was made mainly because I saw what was happening as a line officer with Women's Council in the 2 or 3 years previous to me serving as president. I saw how the market was shifting in other areas, and it made me a little bit concerned about what the future may hold, because I remembered what happened in the 80s. So we sold the company, but it also freed up my time to really, serve and stay focused on what was most important, as far as serving as a national leader in the organization. And I encouraged us to work together as a team, myself and the other line officers, because I had the great honor of serving with Deborah Gilmore, and also with Margot Willis. And we were officers all at the same time. And it was just an honor to serve with them. And so I made the decision. We talked about it because a lot of the networks were struggling themselves because of losing some membership and everything with the recession. And so rather than try to hog the stage, I guess, one of the things that I did was just allow the other officers, if they were closer to an area and it was going to be less expensive for them to go and speak to one of the networks, then I allowed that to happen. And it's always the president who is the first to be invited to go. But we made it understood at national that my ego wasn't such it had to be me. I just wanted them to have the benefit of having someone who was serving as a national officer to be there to help support them. So I would say, my biggest accomplishment was just being the person who tried to create comfort and stability and support, and be open and receptive to there and being available when people had questions.
Love it. Were there any initiatives during your with your team that were important to you all that were that maybe still have a lasting impact on the council today?
Initiatives. I think, more than anything, we were starting to be more focused on retention. I mean, that is always a key role of the organization and of national, to try to be there to be supportive. There were no real initiatives. We worked on some changes to, through our strategic planning, some not major, overwhelming new initiatives. Again, in 2009, it was all about creating stability within the organization. And so we didn't make any drastic changes. There was no need to. So, we operated very much the way that we had been operating. And we were always talking about different changes that maybe we wanted to implement in the future. And there was always a focus on, though our primary focus was on shoring up the individual local networks and being as supportive as we could with the state networks. We looked at one thing that we did look at, but it wasn't just during my year as president. We'd been looking at it for 2 or 3 years, was the reorganization of the regions, as we used to call them. And it was things that we talked about, but it was not initiatives that were brought forward. I think the biggest thing that we realized is that if we could just sort of keep the status quo and make sure that the local networks understood that their meetings needed to be engaging and interesting and informative for their members, that the members would come to the meetings. And if you were providing good quality training at your meetings and good quality speakers at your meetings, the members would come. and you would retain your membership. So it was a huge focus on retention of members. And I think also a recognition, we recognized for not necessarily for the first time, but we really realized the the turnover rate that we were starting to see with local networks have always been pretty successful at recruiting, but retention has been one of the things that sometimes is more difficult. And so we focused on making sure that you were providing value to each and every member and not to overlook the new members, because our biggest drop rates seem to come in the first couple of years of membership. And so that means you've got to reach out to them and stay in communication. Of course, we have a lot more tools available today at National. The year that I served, we did huge cutbacks on the national budget, simply because we were seeing the membership drop. And so we did huge cutbacks on things that we used to have money provided for that we didn't. And that started with the installation, with the inauguration installation, whatever you want to call it. I never thought that I was a queen or anything, so I look at it more as an installation at the national level than an inauguration. They didn't crown me per se, but we cut back on the amount of money that National provided, and that was the first time in the history. So, leading up to being installed as president, we had to really do a lot of jumping through hoops because we already had the event planned, and we already had all these promises that we'd made to our strategic partners and everything. And then there was huge budget cuts, and so we had to make sure that we still followed. I felt that when you get into that position, you're representing the whole nation. But I also knew that I had a lot of companies in Texas that were being supportive of the installation, and so we still needed to provide all the promises to them. So, it started off as a little bit of a financial struggle, but thank goodness, Joanne Stevens actually was my event coordinator, that planned my installation. She came and volunteered to do it, and I thought, yeah, man, let somebody who has all this experience do it for you, and just don't worry about it. Just go and enjoy. So we had a great event, and people sometimes still talk about some of the campaigning and all that we did back in those days. But overall, I think mainly just creating a sense of inclusiveness and stability and continuity within the organization were our primary goals the year that I served, because we had gone through a little bit of turmoil in the past, but nothing that needs to be talked about.
Right, just to say the least. So mentorship plays a huge role in leadership. So what impact do you believe your personal mentorship had on the council's members, fostering growth and development? And I know you've already touched on some of the areas in terms of like being the people's president, or however people want to describe you, but right leader at right time. So anything else you want to elaborate on in terms of your own personal style of mentoring?
Now, I think that more than anything, I've made a point. Again, it's as a mentor, you've got to make yourself available. And other than the last 2 or 3 years when I've been involved in a more demanding job capacity, as director of real estate education for Champion School Real Estate, I don't have as much time to devote to Women's Council like at the local level. I was always there and supportive after I had served as the national president, and even after I'd served as state president before there was even a thought of going to national. I always tried to be supportive, and there were people who would come to me to ask advice because they knew I had served in those capacities. and they would ask me advice on what they needed to do to get involved. And so it's, I wouldn't say that, I mean, there's a few people that I would love to take credit for, but I'm not going to on this broadcast. But there are people that I've encouraged to move forward, to put themselves in situations where they would be, I guess it's more like helping to groom people for future leadership capacities. Each person has to make their own decisions on whether they want to seek out the leadership role, and it's not something everybody wants to do, and it shouldn't be. Because if all we, we have lots and lots of leaders in our organization, but you also have to have a ton of followers in order to have a vibrant organization. And there's all different ways that people exhibit leadership skills. And so sometimes it might have been just encouraging somebody to volunteer to be the head of the bylaws committee. Back in a time when we actually had a working bylaws committee at the national level, because there were times that there were serious bylaws changes that had to be presented to the membership. And so anything from that to, serving as the treasurer, one of the things I focused on is trying to get people who want to maybe be president one day, whether it's locally or at the state or national level. I've always been a firm believer that if you don't understand the operations of the organization, if you've not served as treasurer, then you're not going to have as much of an understanding of what your total job is when you become president. You've got to understand the budgets. And even though the budgets are prepared at national by our accountant and by our EO, we still have to understand how those things interact and the importance of every category. And also, I've really encouraged and even suggested for some people to hold off, who wanted to leap all the way to the top immediately. And I would say, you need to run for this office versus trying to jump too far ahead, because you need that experience, that you build on that experience each year. And you should be learning something, some new skill and everything every year that you serve in some type of line officer position. So, leadership comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes and forms, and it requires all kinds of different skills. And I think we need to recognize some of the unsung leaders in our organization who are always there, supportive, always volunteering for whatever you need, but never really sought to be in the limelight, perhaps. And that wasn't something I set out to do, by the way. I never set out to be a president, even at the local level. I had people who pushed me along the way. So sometimes people ask, when did you know that you wanted to be national president? Well, shoot, I didn't know that. It wasn't anything I ever even had on the radar screen. But I knew I wanted to serve in the organization. And so a lot of my initial service was more locally and then at the state level. But as I had people who encouraged me to move up to national. And I had a past national president from Florida, bless her heart, Sue Flagg, who encouraged me to wait, because I was being encouraged to go ahead and run for what was then Secretary Treasurer. It was a combined office, and she wanted me to wait a year. And so I did. And then lo and behold, there were 5 people running the year that I finally decided to run. So, it's been an interesting journey, and that's what it is. It's a journey, and so it has its ups and downs, but mainly it has tons of rewards, like getting to know people within the organization and having lifelong friendships as a result of that.
And it's so true. And that kind of segues nicely into the next question, which is, what key lessons do you think current members can learn from both the successes and the setbacks that you've experienced in your leadership journey?
Never lose hope, okay? And never keep trying, okay? Be willing to also try new ideas. Back in the time that I served as a national line officer, we talked about a lot of stuff, and then we kept putting off implementing things. And looking back on it, I think that you have to be brave enough to step out in good faith and try something new. And if there's struggles in your local network, as far as membership and everything, try something new to try to attract people to be part of it, and and beef up your game, because there's so much competition for our members today, that we really have to stay focused on doing what we've always done, and what I feel we do better than any other part of our organized real estate, and that is train leaders. But I think we need to focus on training leaders for business, as well as training leaders to serve in organizations, not just Women's Council, but also the state association, the local boards and associations, and ultimately national. But and I think we have, I think at least in Texas, I know we have a much more focused look at that. We are now working much more closely with our with Texas Realtors to try to get them to be more aware of the accomplishments of our members, so that our members get selected to serve on state committees and everything with the association. And that, I believe, is that has to be an ongoing focus. And it supports our mission as far as involvement and all, and leaders in not just Women's Council, but also in the real estate organization and the broader community. So it all starts with your leadership training, and that has to be something that we don't lose sight of, even if at every meeting there was just a quick little leadership example that was given, a little leadership quote or a leadership story that doesn't take up much of a meeting, but you stay focused on that, because that has always been our goal. And what a lot of members don't know, but I've been around a long time now. And what a lot of members don't know is that Women's Council had the first leadership training program within the association, within real estate. And it was called Leadership Training Graduate. And I proudly got that designation. It was recognized by NAR and everybody. And along the way, we gave it up. In retrospect, I wish we had never given up that designation program, because over time, the local and the state and the national organizations have all created their own leadership training programs, as we know. But that training program started with Women's Council, and that's something we should all be very proud of.
Absolutely. That's super. I actually have never heard that. So that's really, I think, and probably many newer members would not even be aware of it. So
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Yeah, but Ann DeFreeze, all of us back then, Ann was the president the year before I was. And all of us back then, you were all encouraged to get your LTG, just like, you're encouraged to get your PMN today. And that was a very controversial issue, by the way, when we switched to the PMN program, because they wanted to have a more business focus. And that is when we sort of transitioned and gave up our big focus back then, which was on development and training. And, we had all the modules and everything, all the coursework already written for that. Too bad we didn't copyright it. We could have been selling it to the association these days if we had it.
So true. So true. So as we kind of round out our time here today, any sage words of wisdom, or if I knew then what I know now type of moments or stories would you love to share with members?
Sage words of wisdom. I think I've sort of already said a lot of things, but I would say, number one, be true to yourself. You always have to be that. You have to be genuinely who you are, because the membership can see straight through a fake leader who is only in it for the title. And those are not the types of leaders that we need in the organization. You need somebody who has a servant heart. Servant leadership, I think, is the way that Women's Council always has had a focus on serving others. And I think that is why we have been able to sustain ourselves over the years, but we also need to be more focused on that. It's not about building a resume. It's about giving back to the organization, that if you really volunteer your time and you work hard, being a participating member within the organization, you'll reap so many rewards financially and personally from being actively involved. I no longer actively list and sell because I'm teaching real estate full time now. But back when I was, 80% of my business was coming from referrals, and the majority of that was from Women's Council members across the country. And in fact, I just recently sent a referral to a Women's Council member in Northern Virginia, because that is the one thing I would still look for first. Support the organization with referrals to other, support the companies that are supporting you at the local level and at the state level, so you keep those strategic partners, and it becomes a win-win-win all the way around whenever you do that. But focus on developing your own skills and your own insights, and be a lifelong learner is what I would recommend that you do. And on that note, I'll give a plug for the ABR class, because everybody within our organization should be taking the ABR class if you've not had it between now and the end of the year, while it's still being offered for free. Okay. We'd love to see you come take it through Champions, but there's other organizations that are offering it, and it's just a golden opportunity for all of our members to take that ABR class, so that you are learning better how to talk to consumers on this whole commission issue, because we're going to be battling that for a while. So I would love to see Women's Council become the leader in that whole movement as far as promoting that class. It's not our class, but it's a great class for all of our members to have.
Agreed. Well, Madam Past President Becky Hill, I am so grateful for this opportunity. So thankful. It's just been a joy and a pleasure. All these golden nuggets and just this wisdom is just incredible. And we truly appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Lorianne. I'm glad we finally got this together, and it's always great to see you. I'll look forward to are you going to be in Boston?
Yes.
Okay. I'll look forward to seeing you there. Okay.
You too. All right. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye, everyone.